guys.
All right, good afternoon, late morning to everyone. There's fewer people here today, so I think me and William scared everyone off. Or we'll just talk it up to spring break, the Monday after spring break. How many of us were here for the first session? 2, 3. Okay. Well, that's okay. This is part 2, following part 1 of why this matters, understanding faculty role in the experience of students on campus. And in this particular conversation, minority students of color in our classroom. How do we as faculty, how are we impacting that experience? Dr. Turner and I did the first one. I'll provide a little recap of what we did, but kind of the format that we use, we'll use it again today. I'll talk for the first 15 or so minutes, and then Dr. Burgess is coming up after me. She'll talk the other 15 minutes and last Q&A at the end to kind of wrap up our time together. So what we talked about, this is Dr. Turner's portion of our discussion. And as you're reading those, I think the most important things to understand is when we're thinking about faculty and our role, and your role on the student experience is understanding yourself. On there, talked about implicit bias, stereotype threat, microaggressions. Those things are things that have everything to do with how you view the world, how you are interacting with students, and how you are teaching these students, ultimately teaching and impacting the learning experience. And then the second part about that is understanding the student. So we have these students who show up in our classrooms and say, hey, teach me, educate me, lead me, grow me, be my mentor. What are they bringing? How is that impacting how they are viewing and listening to the words that are coming out of our mouths? What does that mean? What do we do with that? So when you combine your experience, my experience as a person, as a human, and my upbringing and the way I view the world with the way students are viewing the world and their upbringing, when those two things collide in the classroom, that's the product. And that's often the reason why we need trainings like these, conversations like these, because there's a glitch there. It's just something that's going on when I meet a student that just isn't rubbing right. And so that's what we kind of discussed last week, or 3 weeks ago. And then the second part of that was my portion, helping us understand that, one, this is not charity work. We're not coming here to rescue students. Hopefully the students who are being enrolled in our classrooms are capable. We understand that they're coming from a variety of different backgrounds, but they don't necessarily need us to save them. That's not our role. When we're talking about minority students, this is not me. This isn't mission work. This isn't us we aren't bettering their lives, but they're good. They just need people who can relate to them, people who can impact their experience for the better. Introduce the concept of white savior complex. The best illustration I can think of this is in the movie Blindside. We have Sandra Bullock with the obstacle oar. Is this great football black athlete at home, and you would think he'd be the story, but really it is about Sandra Bullock and how she was able to save and rescue this black child from this despicable world. The work we're doing here, the conversation we're having, it's not about the white savior complex. So we're not asking you as educators to come in and save these poor little children. It's more about understanding who we are. Another thing we pointed out last week too is if a student is showing up in our classrooms, they're more than likely, if they're choosing to come to Lipscomb, they're more than likely used to this kind of environment. We talked about some statistics, talked about some stories last time about how students of color are coming to predominantly white institutions, but the chances of them, the likelihood of them having teachers of color is pretty slim to none. Think about the educational system in America. Chances are they've gone K through 12 without having a teacher of color. I shared my experience. K through 12, my first grade teacher was a black woman. After that, I believe I had a computer teacher that was a black man, and I had a geometry teacher in 9th grade. So I only saw him once or 3 times a week. And so having a teacher of color, students are probably used to that, probably used to navigating environments, is just enhanced on a college campus when they can't go back home to mom and dad. and don't have those support systems that they have K-12. And then the last one is, it's about recognizing your role and examining who you are in this experience with a college student. What is my role as a faculty member? What is my role as a staff member in making sure that these students are having a positive experience, that these minority students are able to engage and connect in my classroom and have an experience they're going out saying, yes, I truly value my listening education. So I wanted to start this off. I need to preface again by saying I'm not a faculty member, but I do have students who are influenced and taught by faculty members. So I hear a lot about what's going on in the classroom. Often students come straight from class saying, Prentice, this is what happened that was really good, a great example. This is something that happened that was not a very good example. So I feel like I have some sense of credibility in regards to interpreting and understanding the student experience and what's happening in the classroom. So I wanted to start off with the current numbers. And when we're looking at these, this is the faculty numbers here. That might be a little hard to see, so look at this one. You can see it over here. I wanted to break it down. I just broke it down by white, Black, and Hispanic, Latino faculty members. This is out of roughly 300 faculty members on campus. We can see there's a total, about 90% of our faculty members are white. We have, I believe it's including adjuncts as well. What I pulled off of, not Argos, but Vera Bridge. So I believe it's including all faculty who are teaching our students here. So you can see the breakdown. You have the green male, blue female. So about 153 white males or white males teaching our students, 118 white females. And then it just goes down from there. We have 6 Black males, 13 Black female teaching our students, Hispanic, Latinx, and other. So what you're seeing here, you break this up, you take, if we're going to focus on the 10% here, faculty of color. That's broken down, that's spread out over 10 colleges, 3 schools. So the likelihood of a student being able to be taught by a professor, Black professor, Hispanic professor, Asian professor, pretty slim to none. So what does that do for the majority white faculty who have to communicate and translate to Black and brown students in the classroom? Okay. Then if we look on our students, this is undergraduate student number. There are about 2,823 students on campus. That was fall 2018. Okay. We look at the number here, it breaks down. Faculty was about 90% white, 10% other, or 10% non-white. Student breakdown is about 77% white, and then would that be 23% non-white. So we can see that. We see that our faculty numbers it's just a disproportionality here, 77% versus 90%. So I just wanted to paint that picture of what are our classrooms looking like. We have a greater chance of more Black and brown students being in the classroom, but not as great of a chance of a Black and brown teacher teaching all of our students here. Okay, so I thought it was pretty helpful to see our diversity numbers in terms of Black and brown professors and students. So observations, this is where we're getting into, this will be my portion right before Norma comes up, but these are kind of some of the observations or charges, if you will. If I could say, this is what I'm hearing from students, here's what you could do immediately in your classroom to impact the student learning experience. This is what I would give to you from the staff perspective. One, when it comes to Black and brown students, it's a personal observation. One, I always say, do you really want this? Like relating to Black and brown students, getting the most out of them, helping them have a positive experience in your classroom, in your offices. Is it something that you really want? I always say, I can work with whatever you tell me who you are. Okay, I can work with that. If you tell me I'm just here to teach, to spit the information out, give a test, and go home, I'm fine with that. There's not going to be this expectation of you relating to me being a possible mentor. But if this is really something that you want, I want to invest in lives of students, I want to learn a different perspective, I want to grow as a person, I can absolutely work with that as well. So I need you to understand, do you want this? And then it involves implicit bias, outside influences, things that make you who you are and what you're bringing when you talk to a student. Okay, that's the first one. Another one would be nonverbal cues. So an example, I'll hear students come to my office and just say, I don't know if my professor doesn't like me. They just don't approach me the same way. I don't know if it's an age difference, a race difference. There's just some levels, some nonverbal cues that are being sent to students suggesting that I'm not interested in you as a student. I'm not interested in getting to know who you are. And that's before one word is said in the classroom. All right, so understanding how do my nonverbal cues, the way I'm interacting or approaching a student, how does that affect that interaction with the student? Another one is tokenism. So we have one end where we say it's just going to be an all-inclusive classroom. Everybody's going to have to learn the same, regardless of who you are, gender or race. But then there's the whole other end of the spectrum where it's saying, I'm going to try to do my very best to not single anybody out. You, Black student, help me understand this Black concept. Okay, that's the whole other end of the spectrum that puts that student in mind saying, wait, first of all, I can't speak on behalf of the entire Black community. Okay, so there's a tendency to want to do that, and then there's another tendency to want to use that student again for every single thing. I always get I have a colleague of mine who shall be renamed, not going to say his or her name. But every single time, in an effort to relate to me, I hear the genuine spirit. In an effort to relate to me, every time this person talks to me, it's about sports or entertainment. I've been here a year now. We've had conversations, we've had dialogue, you've seen my family, you've heard what, but every single time, did you watch the game last night? Have you listened to this latest album? And I want to tell this person, I'm a little bit deeper than just sports and entertainment. Because when I hear you talk to your other colleagues, my other colleagues, it's not about sports entertainment, it's about something else. So we can do that same thing with our student, relating a topic that we think relates to their race, and that's our engagement and connection point. So that message sends the student, well, you only see me this one way. Okay? The other one is silencing voices. If I had to rank them, this would probably be number one. When we're having conversations, when we're talking about different things, subject matter, and the topic gets uncomfortable or it goes to race, the professor just doesn't know how to handle it, and they just totally either dismiss the thought or just work around it. So you're silencing that voice, and the message that sends to the student is, I want to hear your voice, but just not in this area. Okay? My interaction with students, we have some very bright students here who, when we're talking, they say something, I said, oh my goodness, I either haven't thought of it that way or just didn't interpret it that way. And I don't even know how to engage in a conversation with that. But the impact of a professor saying, no, Johnny, Susie, we're not going to talk about that right here, in a pretty demonstrative way, can prevent the student from talking in class further. And another one is relying on the same old syllabus. All right, I remember there's another example of one student who came to me, this was probably 2 years ago, and said, I'm in this art class, and it's like 18th century art. I don't even know what period of art we were in. But they were talking about lynchings, okay? She said that after a while, the professor eventually admitted this was the first Black student they ever had in their class. I said, okay, that's interesting. But it was the professor didn't provide any level of trigger warning, any level of, hey, we're going to talk about something that's very sensitive or potentially sensitive, just to let you know. So the professor put images up of pretty graphic lynchings and said, okay, how do you interpret this? She said, interpret it? I can't even look at it. And so when she went to go present, or when she went to go talk to the professor said, you need thicker skin, just keep it moving. So the professor totally dismissed it. And the professor said, well, I've just always taught it this way. If you're going to be in my class, you're just going to have to learn and just fall in line, essentially. And so the student just said, man, I don't even know. How do I challenge a professor's syllabus? How do I ask for clarification? And the student was pretty distraught, to the point where I had to come in and try to be a mediator between the adult and the student. It was kind of a challenging situation to be in. But I say all that to say, just looking at your syllabus and asking maybe someone else who's different gender, race, ethnicity than you, and just saying, here are the books I'm using, here is the content we're going to be talking about, just how does it speak to you? You don't have to ask the person to go line by line, X this out, but it's just getting an extra set of eyes on, this is how I'm presenting the information. Considering it being 2019 and where we are, how does this read to you? Would you want to take my class? Would you want to engage in this subject matter? And then not using the resources around this. I can talk about this real briefly. I mean, I say 2019, we're in a political era that I've never seen. We're in the Me Too movement. We're in technological advances. There's just so many things around us that we can use and incorporate student voices and viewpoints into our material in the classroom that can bring the material to life. I don't know how that works in biomechanical engineering. I don't know how you liven that up. I don't know how you liven up nursing or whatever, but there's got to be ways to make things relevant in the classroom. And one way could be talking to students, just asking students, pulling students, listening to their stories, talking to them. I'll brag on Corey Mathis. I was hoping she was going to be here, but Corey Mathis, there's a student who works for me, and she said, I was intimidated by Dr. Mathis, probably for the first semester that I had her. I just something about her, I just didn't know, but she kept asking me questions. She kept pulling me in. She didn't allow that awkward tension that we had to prevent her from engaging me as a student. And I said, okay, so where are you going with this? She said, well, now I love Dr. Mathis. I'm working for her. I'm going to intern for her. I'm going to do all these things for her just because Dr. Mathis said, you are a Black woman. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know, I just want you to be involved with what we have going on here because I really value your experience and who you are as a student. Not so I can personally grow, not for some selfish gain, but I just think I know you need to be a part of what we have going on here. And so that was a good moment of Dr. Mathis just refusing to not to talk to a student because it was awkward, because there was just this weird barrier between us, okay? And so before I pass it off to Norma, what can you do as a faculty member from somebody in student life, in the Office of Intercultural Development, who is begging to interact, have a partnership with faculty because we need it? Number one, Connect is getting plugged in. We have a newsletter. This is not going to plug our newsletter, but we have a newsletter that goes out every Sunday at 7 p.m. talking about what we have going on in the Office of Intercultural Development. We highlight a student. Hopefully there'll be some students in your classroom. But we highlight a student. We talk about programs, events, and activities that are going on. That's a very simple way you can just get engaged with, I would say, minority campus right off the top. Also participate. When I was walking over here, I just asked a couple of students, how many of your professors come to the things you're involved in on campus? And they said, oh, no, never. Why would they do that? I said, oh, my goodness. I don't know. So if there's something that I don't understand, please let me know. But showing up to student events, I mean, that goes a million miles. That'll say that showing up to one event is like having 100 conversations with that student. It's as simple as saying, William, what do you have going on? What are you involved in? Okay, whenever you have a program, let me know so I can put it on my calendar and I can show up. That goes that goes miles and miles and miles. Another one, again, talk to students. Talk to students. I don't know how simply I could put that, more simply I could put that, is just asking, when we see a minority student, understanding that that student is viewing you as the topical expert, viewing you as an adult, and wanting, how do I say it? I don't think students are going to think it's awkward for you to talk to them in the sense of, hey, do you have time to go grab coffee, come by in office hours? You don't even have to say, look, I see you as a Black male, I want to talk to you, get to know your story. No, all you have to do is just say, hey, look, come talk to me. I just want to know you, you're in my class, we're going to be here for the next semester, next year, let's just talk. And then you can work on yourself on the back end while you're engaging these students, and it's just that relationship is developing there. And then my last one, again, just partner with OID. Host any program, event, activity that you have. Reach out to me, reach out to my staff. We would love to be able, whatever it is. I know, is it the Salt or Light program that hosted the Hidden Figures? Was that Light? Light. So last semester, before we did that, sat down with who's over light? Stacia Watkins. I'm sorry, only been here a year, but Stacia reached out to us and said, "Hey, we're gonna have a couple of lunch and learns to kind of build momentum. But OID likes to partner. Great. Partnership really look like, can you put this in your newsletter? Can you put some flyers up? Can you send people to come to our area?" It was a diversity topic. It was really simple for us to meet all those requests, and it got students from our area into your area. Very simple. It didn't require any over-the-top programming or planning. It was just a way to get students connected with your area connected with our students. Those are those small relationship building things. Those are those immediate things you can do for students to start having a positive impact with students here. So that's the end of my portion. I want to turn it over to Norma so that she can put a bit more meat on the bone here.
More meat on the bone.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
I did not come to the last one. I was in Boston trying to learn all the things I'm supposed to know to tell y'all. But I think it's important for us, and it's important for us as an institution, as people, to learn as much as we can. I have no doubt whatsoever that you know what you know about your discipline. You're experts in that area. As former dean, I read all the things that the people in my area did, so I know that you are at the top, whatever your discipline is. But the other thing about that, though, is that we don't know enough about each other to know what to say, what to do, how to behave. All those things are really, really important. So when we say, well, you just need to know how to talk to people, you need to know you need to know that. But one of the things that I learned while I was away was that we never talk about where we all come from, how we got to where we were, how we got to this country, how we got to be on this land that somebody discovered. Really, maybe not. But I think it's important to take stock and step back a minute to say, well, what was here before we got here? And what did they look like? What did they talk about? What did they do? We don't go back that far. Our historians don't go back that far. Some of the research that I did while I was on postdoc many years ago was to learn more things about my discipline. I'm a sociologist by profession, but history informs what I was talking about. And of course, that's not sociology. No, it's not. But I need to know that so I know what I know better. So when you think about knowing what you know and how to interpret that in your classroom is one thing, but knowing those students who sit in front of you every day is another. So when we think about how we contextualize where we come from and how we got to where we need to be, if you have moved around like I have, I've been with several universities and several opportunities. When we travel, we go to church, and you know what it feels like when you travel, you just stop in for that service. But I bet you that you have not been in a congregation that you walked into one day and the conversation automatically changes because you're there. You can feel it. You know that was not quite what the preacher was going to say that day. And because he sees you, just like you were talking about when this person says, well, that's the way I've always taught it. Because there have not been any people of color or other people in the classroom that day. So I just didn't know how to rearrange my thoughts that day, and it went that way, and people were like, We were in a southern city, not too far from here, on our way to another southern city, and we stopped one morning, and it was right after one of the massive injustices or killings or whatever you want to call it in our country, and we were on our way this way, and we stopped, and we went in, and it was you could feel the discomfort in the room when we came in. We were like, says Church Christ on the sign when you walked into the room. You kind of go, oh, okay. But the preacher changed his sermon just a little bit because that's not what he was going to say. And you could feel it. You knew. Okay? So when you walk into a congregation for the first time, or even if you have moved, when you came to it the first time, you're wondering, okay, well, then anybody going to come up and speak? Or are they going to say anything to me because I'm sitting one seat between me and them, and those sorts of things? It goes through your mind. How do people treat you when you come that way for the first time? Given that many years ago I took charge of myself, so I own this space around me, I can do that. And it's like, hi, in your face. You can't miss me. I'm almost 6 foot tall, and I'm cute. I have white hair. I have adult children. All those things go into my mind. So you can't dismiss me that way. But our little students, they come like, okay, I want to be correct this first thing. So what are they going to do when they come to you? They're not going to say, you dismissed me. Unless they're older, they can kind of tell you, you dismissed me, right? Why did you, I remember I held my hand, you never called on me. But most of our undergraduates won't do that. They'll kind of sit in the corner, they'll kind of shrink back and shrink a little further back. And before you know it, they're in the last seat, and sometimes they just go on out the door and leave the university on purpose. But I think it's important for us to begin to go on a journey that's going to teach us how to welcome our students, get to know our students better, and make them feel welcome when they come. Faculty is exactly the same way, because when we come to Lipscomb, when we came to Lipscomb, and there was a we conversation. There's always a we. I remember when I wasn't here then. And you remember when Sing-A-Rama when I wasn't here then either. And then we weren't here. Most of us were not here then. A few of us were. But you make yourself feel welcome so that you can participate in the community. We need to make our students feel welcome the same way so they can participate in our community. And we don't always do that. And just like a congregation is not intentional, it's not meant to be rude, it's not meant to dismiss you. Sometimes it may be, but either way, I've been in a couple of congregations where people do not interact with each other. They're not going to interact with you. So they don't interact with each other. And you have to figure out ways to say hi to somebody, at least one person. And even there are people in congregations today who will not speak to you. I got through that too. I sent her a note and decided, oh yeah, we're going to have a conversation. Because I moved around so much, you get used to all sorts of different people with different attitudes. I just speak to them, speak at them. So you can't miss me. When I moved to Syracuse in the north, Northerners have a different approach to people. You speak at them, because otherwise they're like, why are you speaking to me? Why are you looking this way? Because you're a person, I can't ignore you walking down the sidewalk, okay? So I know how to do that, but our students don't. So as we meet with them, talk with them, get to know them better, it's our responsibility to make them feel welcome in this space. This is all our spaces, it's not just ours. And I think the same thing applies to our faculty members. Underrepresented faculty are treated basically the same way all over the country. We're intimidating. They look mean. They don't want to talk to us for whatever reason. And I'm in a position where I hear this all the time at conferences, and I mentor a lot of less senior people all over the country because I lived that life. And I know how I wanted to live my life, and I did not want to become old and in mindset and remember what you did to me 30 years ago. It's just not worth the effort. But people do remember that outside of this context for the most part. But I hear it all the time. Well, students will say things like, well, I've never had a professor like you before. What does that mean? And, I think sometimes if you push them just a little bit, well, what do you mean by that? I don't know, but I just never had a professor like you. But they don't want to say why or what that means. So, just kind of talk with them, and they'll express some different approaches to it. But one of the things that I thought about, and I've been thinking about it for several months now, is how we train our faculty to work in an environment that's going to consistently get more diverse. The way the population trends are going, they're going to be more brown students in our midst. These brown students will support your retirement because I'll probably retire before any of you. So they'll report your retirement. They'll be the people who will be working. And you have to be able to address these students in a way that makes sense and makes them be reliable, contributing alums to this institution as you grow in it and grow older. But, I think one of the things that we don't do is to understand what issues they may have. And I like the way Prentice put it when he said, you have to just talk to them, welcome them into conversation. And I'm going to recommend and suggest that you join the Joshua Project if you're not part of that. It gives you an opportunity to talk to the students one-on-one. It gives you an opportunity to learn about them. It's an excellent program, and it gives you an opportunity to get to know one student or two students on a very intimate level so that you can have a conversation with any student. And you can introduce them to other people that you know. They're like, oh, you know that, yeah, come and meet my mentee. But sometimes you get students who don't want to conversate, and you got to figure out how you're going to conversate with that student. but I've participated for a number of years with it, and you know, a lot of times I've had really, really good students to work with and talk to, and it's important that you do. The other thing too to think about is when you go abroad. There are a number of students who go abroad, but the faculty members who go abroad, how do they respond to the students in those classes too? One of the things that we can go, and I hope that we will, is to have more students who go abroad who are underrepresented. The first thing they say is, "Oh, I can't afford to do that," and never looked, never thought about it, never embraced other cultures, because you know we're in our purple bubble. We don't have to deal with other people because we send faculty with them. They come together in a group. They're always together. They travel together. They go see things together. And in order to learn about cultures, it's important to be able to say, "Oh, okay, wonder what that's about," you know. And I'm sure they do to some degree. But as an instructor, as a faculty member, if you don't know how to do that, it's harder to encourage them to do that, and then to explain and have a discussion about that when they come back to class on Monday. So I think it's important for us to at least develop some programs to be able to learn what you need to know and how you can be you better. And it's an important project because you never stop learning. It's so important to always learn more things. And the more things that I learn, the more that I know that I don't know, you know? But it's fun learning and continuing to learn as you grow older or more mature in your subject, and just learn things so that you don't have to do things the same old way in the same old syllabus. I remember one of my professors many years ago at NC State University with Dr. Bobby. We weren't there at the same time, but Lipscomb and NC State are playing on Wednesday night. But he truly had old notes, you know, from the notebook paper that had turned yellow, and he was still saying the same thing I know he said 30 years ago. You don't you get bored with you? Well, if you get bored with you, your students are bored with you, okay? Just take that to heart, and think about it. When Prentice, you said, "I don't know what we do about the technical part," let them watch Hidden Figures. You can see that. And I watched part of it last night really late, and Catherine was talking about it. She said, "Well, you know, I should put my name on it because it's my work on the paper." Show the movie. If you don't know what to say, show the movie. And then have some conversations about it, because that's exactly what it's about. How do you recognize underrepresented groups, those Black women who were called computers, you know? So they said, "Well, you know, the computers don't need to go in this room." She said, "I need to know this right now because it changes so rapidly and I'll be behind. As soon as I get it done, you get to go do it, but then I'm behind. I have to redo it." And then the man said, well, why can't she go in? He said, "Well, there's never been a woman in." She said, "Well, there's never been a man on the moon either." Oh, you know that. So I'm thinking, show the movie. A lot of things that's difficult to do, show a movie or show something that you can kind of relate to and talk about with your students, because sometimes they don't want to have class. Sometimes they're sitting like, "I'm concerned about this, that, and the other." You cannot get through to them that day. Show something so they can talk about it. You can talk about it with them, and you get to know them better that way too. Okay. I got 6 minutes. Dr. Turner's slides 18 and 21 about how you do your classroom is a good one for you to learn, and you said that they would be available to the group, and they will be. But making sure that your voice is heard is important in your classroom. Let your students know how much you care about them, because sometimes they think you don't. And just like I think a Prince was saying, when you don't allow your students to talk, when you don't talk back to them, they think you ignore them. Let them know that you don't, you know who they are, and when you call their name, like, "Well, she knows my name too." Yes, you do know their name, and make sure that you do, because each one of your students are individuals, and treat them as such. So I'm gonna give you 3, 4, 5 minutes to ask a question. Okay. You better ask him. Yes, Steve.
I'd like to just briefly talk about this later. So tell me if it's better to talk about it later. But our grad film student is 50% plus people of color. We feel very fortunate for that. I am facing a situation right now where we have a student that, based on, she's a public figure, I don't want to get too far into this, she's older, and based on Facebook posts and things like that, and things she's told me, I'm quite sure she's racist. white student. And I'm getting pressure from her. Am I in the program? Am I not in the program? I don't necessarily have academic reasons to keep her out of the program. I am so worked up about this and so concerned about how this is going to work. I do not know what to do next.
First, this is the first thing you do.
Yeah,
Breathe, bring it in. And you can think.
right.
Because see, when you do this, it's hard to think about the best.
Oh, I've been thinking about it for a month.
I can tell you. But seriously, you know, people are people. And
Right.
sometimes, I know, all the time, God puts people in our space to do things.
Right.
You may be that person to talk with her about that. You know, and you don't say, you should think like that. There are ways to get your point across and to deal with her so that she can hear what you're saying and hear what you mean so that she can get better at what she's trying to do when she comes in.
Right.
Is she a current student?
She is not. No,
Okay.
she had taken some classes a couple years ago, dropped out after a few weeks because of other situations, and now, and I don't want to go too deep, but she has a high social media profile as well. So I'm looking at this as, I don't let her in, it's going to blow up on social media. I do let her in, and she,
Yeah.
I am really. So maybe we just need to talk afterwards.
Y'all help him.
I'm just curious if you have other qualifying reasons for people being in and out of your program, or is it just open admission?
It would be a hard case to make academically, not this person.
And I wasn't even so much suggesting that, but I do think that when you put together a class, you put together a class of people who bring different strengths and values and experiences to the table. And that just might be one of the things that you think about more broadly, just rather than just isolating this one particular student because of a particular view that she holds. I think if you feel like this person would be really, really disruptive to the teaching process and to the program, I think that's a legitimate thing to consider. What you do with it, I don't know, but I do think it's a thing that you should think about, unless you have this kind of our doors are open, everybody's welcome in, and then you don't really have very much of a leg to stand on if that's the way it goes.
Right. And now I have a follow-up question because I'm
Okay.
full of questions. Our undergrad program is a School of Theater and Cinematic Arts is woefully shy on people of color, especially our theater program. And we all recognize it as a bad thing. But we want it to change. We don't see how it changes without some scholarship funding. Is that something that I can come to you and say, will you work with me to help me make this case of how important this is? Our theater program in particular is a very visible program on campus, and we want it to change, and we have right now 1 or 2 students that we would love to bring in. It's going to have to require significant scholarships. Is that something that
I don't know what types of financial aid mechanisms we have on campus, but most students do receive something.
yes,
And then putting a package together, depending on how much you want the student and what's available.
Right.
Is important.
Right.
The other thing about it too is that we don't necessarily recruit very well locally.
Right.
You know, can I hear about it? I talked to a student the other day who said, I want to go into senior high school. And I said, well, where are you looking? I'm looking at UNC, this one. I said, well, you know this, and we have a good film program. You do? Yeah. Come over and listen.
Yeah.
Students don't really know enough about us to know.
Right.
Before the engineering building opened, this young man came to one of the dinners and he said, well, I'm here with my girlfriend. She's looking at engineering or something, he said. I said, well, you know, this man's engineering house by the time you get here. I said, the new building will be open. He said, really? I don't know if he came, but just the fact that he didn't know.
Right.
We
But does
don't
the
know.
administration,
Yeah.
would admissions consider that as something that, as a benefit to a program, to have a more diverse program, especially something as visible as theater, so that I can make the case, look, based on all these other considerations, here's why we need more scholarships.
Could be, but I don't know where the money would come from.
What I would think you might want to do is when your college has their budget hearing
Right.
of the president and the executive leadership team is to have that as one of your initiatives for the year, to make your case for why you would need that.
Right.
And then that could get the ball rolling, at least in terms of the discussion starting about that. My experience, and I haven't been here very long, but it's not necessarily a very easy thing to do. It's not a very easy case to make, but that would seem to me to be where you would want that. That might be a logical place to
Right.
start with that, and I'll play with that conversation.
Is it easier case to make now than it was 5 years ago? Is it, or is it nothing really changed as far as?
I think people are more aware of it. I
Yeah.
don't know that there's any more money.
Gotcha.
So, sometimes there are some ways that things have funds that they can offer or something like that. But, our financial aid is pretty regimented. So you have to make arguments for them and then see where there are funds available, because sometimes there are scholarships that we don't know about that students get. So, and also get friendly with your friends, donors.
Oh, right.
And I think it's also really helpful if the student is academically gifted and talented in the way that is measurable.
Right.
I know that I have been successful at convincing people here when there was like a really, really bright student of color to say, Vanderbilt wants the student, Duke wants the student, UT wants the student, but the student would really prefer coming here, and we found a way to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so I think, but that was a case where the student had extraordinary grades and extraordinary test scores and a really wonderful academic record. And so, but you can make that case as a test case at least more easily, I think, if you have that kind of background with the students.
That's Rob.
How much money are you talking about?
We're talking about a situation where they've got a full ride to a Chicago school, and so we're just trying to even come close. And it's someone who is extraordinarily talented as a theater actor and performer. Their grades are not great, so, but we frankly don't care about that. We want them with their great performers, and we need that in our program.
They got a graduate.
They do have graduate, yes. Well, we're gonna-
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure we're out of time.
Oh, yeah.
I might have addressed this last time, the session that I missed. Do y'all do any kind of practical hands-on training for best practices for updating the old syllabus? Of course, I mean, I'm new, so I don't have
What's your
old
name?
syllabus. I'm Lauren White. I teach in
Lauren
the
White.
College of Bible.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking, for instance, about the history of the church. When I teach that, teaching that class feels pretty different when I have students of color. And I even approach issues of race and hegemony and all, differently when it's all white students, because I'm just mindful, like you said, you know when there's different bodies in the room, right? You're aware of that. So I would like to be aware of that in a way that's productive for everyone's learning, rather than nervous and And so I would love to know really just kind of practical angles into that sort of thing, so that I'm doing that in a way that benefits every single student in the room, and that isn't just my best guess at that, So yeah, just a request, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that, you guys can answer that here, but I know that you can go online to places like Ohio State University, also the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. But they have really good online tutorials and that sort of thing that are available to anybody in the country who would want to take a look at those. And I'm sure there are other universities that do the same thing, and you all might have stuff here too.
No, we haven't done it, but that's one of our goals. And so, something around like the inclusive syllabus and, engaging in difficult conversations and some of those things. So we're actually working for May to kind of do some workshop opportunities where it's more facilitated conversations where we can address some of these things. So.
one of the things about, which courses do you teach?
I teach theology, kind of systematic theology for undergrads, and then church history, which is the course I'm thinking of. And then I teach some graduate classes as well, and undergrad Bible, so all over.
Yeah, all of them. I heard a sermon one morning, and it was on Mother's Day, and the preacher talked about single mothers. And it went too long, but it was really good because he put it in a way that says, well, single mothers are nothing new. And he talked about how people change things that God had in mind when they were told to do something, like Sarah and some others. And it was really interesting rather than when, scripture verse after says it was awesome. It was awesome. And I'm thinking that this word class, that would be fascinating to hear it said that way, rather than what you think a Bible class might be like. And you still get the point across, you still use the scriptures, and you still know where you are. And it's just rethinking your traditional way of thinking about how you're going to teach this text, or teach this chapter, or whatever, however you do it. And I think just thinking about your being 19 one time, and what you would want to hear, what you would want to say, they're like, when they do that, like their heads don't hit. When they're bored, or when you're bored, they're bored. So I think it's important to begin to think about it in a different way, because we're getting people who've never written things. This is what they do all day. And they don't write anything, they don't talk to anybody. These are the students that we're getting. So some sort of way, we have to come up with different ways of approaching our students so that they can be successful adults. And adulting is something that they're really approaching in a different way. So, okay. It's 11:50. So.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all for coming. Okay.